Hey there, 412ers. I'm looking forward to getting together with you guys really soon. This Saturday, we've got our ride. I hope all of you are able to make it. Looking forward to the adventure there. And then we've also got our second gathering coming up in May. So, looking forward to hamburgers and all that we're going to be doing there together. What I wanted to do is kind of wrap up this segment that we've been looking at with the triangle and then the up triangle. Uh, Thanks for all of you that responded and gave a heads up on what you were going to be working on. I hope that you were able to see some sense of progress. A lot of times, either I see something like, whoa, that made a massive difference because there was a lot of intention, maybe on my part or focus, or I find that, whoa, I didn't really pay attention to that goal as much as what I thought. Both of those are important things to pay attention to. If you saw a lot of good traction, great. What I would encourage you to do is follow that up with a little bit more. You'll see even more breakthrough. So maybe try to increase that goal or find ways to be able to take that target that you had before and kind of focus a little bit more intentionally. If you notice that I didn't really pay attention to the goal as much as what I wanted to, go back and try again. Maybe choose a smaller duration instead of for a week's time frame. I'm going to try to do X today and just try to increase your awareness of that. So that's very common for both of those things. So want to encourage you with that. I'm going to share my screen with you right now and kind of just show you this last element that I want to be able to emphasize for you guys. So I'm going to give you just a real brief, rendition of the triangle. So there's up, there's in, and there is out. We know that each of those, ultimately kind of come together to be able to form this shape of the triangle. And then I'm going to use these cross members up here. I'll choose green for this one to be able to talk about how there's this kind of up-oriented triangle that we've been working on and talking about, trying to see some growth in this up-oriented one. We've got up here at the top worship, we've got the Bible, and then we've got prayer over here. Each of you have been trying to do this, but what I want to zero in on is this thing that we started with from the beginning, up with the Father. And what we did is I encouraged you to choose like an action to engage in relationship development with the Father. So when you chose worship or Bible or prayer, each one of those were steps in a direction of a relationship specifically with the Father. But what I'd love to zero in on a little bit more is the character of God. Because as we develop a relationship in the upward dimension, a lot of this comes back to like, who is God and what is his character? So I want to walk you through a couple of things here to be able to help you to be able to see it. I'm just going to start with the book of Genesis and kind of go from there. In the beginning, when you think of like Genesis chapter 1, you see that God, like begins to create everything. And so he calls everything to existence. He makes this earth that is good and humanity that is very good. And ultimately, what we see is the character of God. We see him as creator. And so that is a way that you can worship God. You can study and learn more in the scriptures about him as creator. And you can pray, whether that's in thanks or in awe of his creation. And so think about the character of God. He is creator and he's made everything that exists around us. When you go further and get to like Genesis chapter 3, this is after Adam and Eve have sinned. The fall has happened. There's this separation in relationship between God and humanity from what it was. But what I find interesting is as they're actually like with all of these kind of consequences coming their way, what you see God do is he actually steps in as provider. And there is an animal that is killed, and he takes the skins of that animal and covers over the nakedness and the shame that Adam and Eve have been walking in. And so that's just one instance of seeing him as provider. There's so many other ways, but the character of God is this: he's creator and he's provider. When you go further on down, like think about like around Genesis chapter 8, humanity continues to kind of spiral out of control. God is really lamenting over humanity that he's created. He's gone from this is very, very good to, gosh, why have I created humanity? But he's searching around and he sees Noah, and God, like in operation with Noah, ends up doing some things, and you see him as protector. So God sees Noah's righteousness. That doesn't mean that he's perfect and that he was without fault. In fact, after the flood, when you see Noah, with all of his family, you see him step in almost immediately into a form of sin that causes some sense of shame. But what you see through Noah's life is this character trait of God, that God is protector. He provides for Noah and he protects him through the flood, by the ark and all of those things that happen from there. So you continue forward, like another huge character in the book of Genesis is you see Abraham. And so God calls Abram out of the land that he is in. He calls him into a land, but he begins to do all of these things to be able to not just call Abram into a relationship, but to form a covenant with him. And really, I would use this kind of partnership word. Like God is this partner, especially as you see that on display with Abram, that God calls Abram to come and to do things, but he also promises to be there and to join in kind of that mission with Abram. And so you see this creator, provider, protector, partner. And then as you go forward from there, the next really big character that you see begins earlier than Genesis chapter 41, but it's Joseph. And so you see Joseph from a young age, like with these skills to be able to kind of have these prophetic dreams. They divide he and his siblings and his father. And then Joseph goes on this kind of wild journey where things just don't go well for him. He's sold into slavery, and then he's kind of mistreated while he's a slave. But what happens is every single time Joseph is faithful to God, and God favors him even when he's in these really difficult situations. And then eventually there's this moment, this is that Genesis 41 moment, where Joseph has gone through all of these difficult times, and then God promotes him. And he promotes him into this position where really you see this transformation happen. So I would call then God transformer. I don't mean the robots, the Autobots and Decepticons, but what happens is this: the character of God is that as he's in a relationship with people, he transforms people. And so again, each one of these are the types of things that you can know God better, understand him better, and even not just from a biblical perspective, but personally, all of this flows into worship, reading, and prayer as well. Moving into the next book of the Bible, when you get to Exodus, the main character that you see here is Moses. Moses, is called at the burning bush. He leads the people of God into freedom out of slavery from Egypt. And you see this really interesting relationship with Moses developed. From Moses doesn't want to go, and God continues to call him, and he provides for him. He uses Moses in all of these amazing ways. All of these things happen. Miracles happen through Moses. But there's this one part, especially in Exodus 34. And I love this scene. Moses is up on a mountain with God, and he now knows God quite well. And he says, God, show me your glory. And then the scriptures say that God like kind of covered over Moses and let him see kind of his backside. And then God names, not names himself, but like declares his character in this poem. And it is a beautiful, beautiful poem if you want to go back and take a look at this. But the way that I would characterize this relationship that develops with Moses and God and the character of God is this friend. God is the friend. And then, to circle right back to where we've kind of been with Jesus, this is Matthew chapter 6. Jesus, who has come, God in human flesh, and shows us how a perfect relationship from a human being to God can take place, is that, when Jesus is asked by the disciples, teach us how to pray, he begins by saying, when you pray, pray like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. He gives what we oftentimes call the Lord's Prayer. But notice the character trait of God that Jesus really uses as an identity statement and an identifier of who God is Father. So I just wanted to show you this list. You can do this all throughout the scriptures. I just kind of went back through and just, as you see God revealed in different segments, what's the character of God that you see on display here? And so this is a God, a being who is amazing. He's creator, provider, protector, partner, transformer, friend, and father. And because he is this in the scriptures, and the scriptures say that he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, all of these things are possible and true for you. But most of this, because it's a relationship, comes with time spent with him. And so again, why are we worshiping? Why are we reading the Bible? Why are we praying? Well, because there is a being, a creator, a provider, a protector who we can know better and better and better. And so in the midst of doing things, don't forget there's just a relationship that we're called to just be in with this amazing God that has invited us into relationship. And so use these as a way to be able to worship him. God, you are amazing as creator. Thank you for inviting me into the partnership that you've called me on mission to be in with you. Thank you for being close as I go through difficult times. You are a good friend to me. Thank you for not leaving me. You're a father who instructs and corrects and provides for me. You can go through these different character traits of God and really not just kind of like memorize them or know them, but understand and know God greater because you're understanding who he is. So really wanted to zero in on this with you, that the main point of this upward dimension really comes down to this Father, this God that we get to be in relationship and know better and better. I hope that's helpful for you. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing you really soon. Take care.